Okay, everyone, welcome to a Raising the Bar special, and I am really stoked. I'm really pumped to do this episode because I'm about to welcome the guests here, and they are some of the smartest, coolest cats that I've met from around the world. And this episode is going to be about relationships, dating, love, marriage, monogamy, polyamory, polyandry, and I'm sure a lot more as well. So I'm just, instead of me introducing, I thought what would be best if I gave the floor to the guests here. We're going to start off with Archer Avelin. How are you doing, Archer?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being here. Would you mind just giving us a quick background into your work and the books that you've written, and just to let our audience know who you are?
Sure. Yeah, my the book that I have out right now is called "The Sex Education You Never Received," and it's basically sort of a spiritual look at sex, and it's a step above really what you get in like the public school education. Even I think religious education. I think a lot of churches fail to help young people understand that. And I think a lot of people default to pornography to learn about sex. So, my book is really designed to sort of help young people, both young men and young women, to kind of figure things out and to try to get a handle on the sex force and not let the sex force control them. So, I've also been interested in the men's movement for quite some time, and, helping men to I guess embrace their sovereignty and to become who they truly are, and basically to go after their own destiny, and not to let themselves sort of waste away like it seems like a lot of men have been doing over the past decades.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, great, man. Well, I'm really looking forward to your insights on this show. Let's go to Hans. How you doing, brother?
Very well. I don't know if it's a better idea to have herself introduce herself, but
Well, I'll quickly intro you, and then you can go into it a little bit more. I met Hans, I think it was about 5 years ago now. Instantly hit it off with Hans. I mean, I worked as I still do as a dating coach, and I do a lot of men's work. And I would actually say I could probably name on my hand the amount of people that I really truly respect, and I think are doing some the best work. And Hans is definitely one of them, if not the top of that list. So I was absolutely chuffed to be able to get Hans on. Hit it off with him immediately. He really liked my Chelsea boots that I was wearing, and but I really liked what he had to say. And just a solid all round dude. And I'll let him now introduce his philosophy and his work.
yeah, well, it's mainly a focus on the relationships. Noticed very early on that most of our relationships are crippled at best, and just a couple of decades attempt to reinvent relationships, and some key elements I've discovered along the way are, for me, seduction, and I really make a stand for it as an art form, and another part is the honor. And those things I've been using as tools to redesign and reinvent relationships with the people I work with, and it's I feel it's really the last frontier. It's not outer space, but it's the way we relate to one another and the way we relate to ourselves, and so just exploring that for the past 2 decades almost now. So yes. It's an ongoing search and redesigning and reinventing, and I enjoy it very much.
Thanks, brother. And Hans is a badass cyclist as well. I mean, he's won tournaments and competitions and trophies as well. So he's a multi-talented cat, that boy. Now we have Ben as well. Ben kindly accepted the invitation to come on this call. I know Ben because of Dieter Doom's work. Dieter wrote a book called Eros Unredeemed, and it was a really profound book because it was just a paradigm altering book for me. It kind of shook me up a little bit, made me think about things in a different way. And Ben is someone that's worked with Dieter and he works at Tamara or Tamara, I don't know how you pronounce it. And I think we would love to know more about that community and how the relationships work in that, and also the core philosophies behind it. But Ben, would you mind just giving your own intro to the work you've been doing, and the following on from Dieter's work?
Okay, hey, hello everybody.
Hi.
So it's an honor to be invited and speak. The original invitation was to Dieter Doom, who is not fluent in English. And I can say I've been working with Dieter Doom about more than 20 years, very closely. And we are in the lead team of Tamara these days. He's the founder of it, but I've been leading it in the team for some years. And in that context, we started the Global Love School. Sabine Lichtenfels, the partner of Dieter and myself. And now I will say something to the philosophy just in relation to what I just heard from you guys. And that is maybe the most significant part of our philosophy that makes it somewhat unique, is that we put relationship and the very intimate processes around it into the public sphere. We say how you love is not your private decision only, but how you love is a result of the culture. And beyond that, the civilization we have been living in for the past 5,000 years. And if we want to truly transform patriarchy and the war that has come with patriarchy, we need to transform this internal wiring in our love relationships and the very foundational relation between not only men and women in culture building, but actually the masculine and the feminine. And yeah, I would leave it at that. And in Tamara, this is almost like a live laboratory for these questions. And even though Tamara is probably known in the world as what is called a free love community, the original impulse is way beyond how do I as a person lead my relationships and what is my preference, but much more how can we actually free the whole area of love and sexuality from fear and the inhibitions that we have been conditioned into. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. There's so much that we can go into on that as well, and I think that we've got a perfect blend of voices and philosophies here that I'm sure we're going to come up with so much insights from this. Archer, could we come to you, brother? Because you take more of where would you say that your ideas are grounded in? Would you say they're more grounded in a sort of it's more of a Christian grounding, would you say, or where does it come from, your core ideas?
Yeah, it's funny. I would say it does come from a Christian upbringing. I mean, I was brought up Baptist, peripherally. I was raised by a single mother. I didn't really attend church much as a kid, but when I was with my father, we would go to a Baptist church. After my divorce, I really got into yoga and Eastern religion. I practice meditation now every day. I believe in reincarnation, which a lot of Christians don't. So I feel like I'm a little bit of a interesting chap, because I don't fall into a lot of the dogma that Christians do, but I do believe that there is some beauty and there's some real truth that comes from like the old scriptures. And if you can understand it in a proper way, I think that a lot of that stuff has been laid out for our benefit. And really, I kind of see all religions sort of as ways to sort of set up boundaries, right? Because if you look at like the animal kingdom, it's really, there's a lot of just sex energy going around, and you could argue that the same thing happens for men and women. It's sex energy going around, and how you harness that sexual energy kind of, I think, really determines the value of your life and the things that you're able to achieve. I like what Benjamin was saying about the community, about experiencing sex and love without fear. And if you go and you read the Old Testament, I mean, the Old Testament is not a feel-good book. I mean, it's there's a lot of just nutty stuff going on there, and you know, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, is the God of the Old Testament, is that Satan? I mean, what kind of God would require people to, like, you know, just kill animals endlessly, you know, and pour their blood all over the altar and just, you know, walk around and do all this stuff, you know? Yeah. So I guess that, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So it gives you sort of an idea of where I'm coming from. I mean, one thing I will say, my concept of God is that, you know, God is like this all loving God. You know, he wants the best for us. You know, there's not a hell waiting for us in the afterlife. I mean, we're in hell now. I mean, you know, look around. It's not that bad of a place. I mean, you got a beautiful set there, John. Because we're in hell. I mean, you know, and it looks like Hans and Benjamin are in very nice environments as well. So, yeah.
All right, cool, man. So let me go to Hans then. What would you say, brother? What's your core philosophy? And let's talk about monogamy here. So let's talk about the you know, how we see relationships. Do we see? Let's go straight into it. So we go straight into the juice. How would you see like do you believe in committed partnerships, relationships, monogamy, or what's your take on it, individual take on it, personally?
Yeah, I think commitment is the cornerstone of every good relationship. You know, it's just the way we've been doing it, and what we call committed relationship has become and marriage, you know, has become a bit of a travesty, you know, and it really holds out the idea of commitment. But I do believe commitment is the cornerstone, you know, and I do see in like exchanging vows and even marriage, beautiful things, you know, beautiful expressions of commitment. Now, I also think it needs more, you know, than just committing to each other, but it is the cornerstone and the most important part. Yeah, you have that on the one hand, and then you have on the other hand the way we've been doing it, the way we look at commitment and marriage is very flawed, you know, to me. And yeah, I'm not against. Some people think that, but I'm totally not against monogamy or marriage, or not at all. I am for a more deliberate consideration of what it is that we really want. How can we get along? How can we get a win-win? You know, that I win, you win. How can we resolve conflict? Because that's one of the essences, I believe, of a good relationship, is how we deal with conflict. So yeah, the way we've been doing relationships is very crippled, I would say, because a lot of people, yeah, most relationships end, and yeah, it's because of a poor understanding of commitment. It's because of a poor understanding of the role of, I would say, honor, a poor understanding of the role of seduction, also, you know, a poor understanding of who we really are. Because I really liked what Archer was saying. You know, this is the back of my book, and you know, we often say, oh, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and from what I gather, you know, we're animals trying to have a human experience, you know, and if we're not in tune with that, come to terms with that, we'll always be enslaved by that, you know. And it's that, to me, has been one of the biggest insights in all of this, you know, that we're animals just trying to have a human experience, you know. But to acknowledge that part, you know, the brutality of us, you know, and the desires, it's been a big part also of the redesigning of relationships. I gave you too much there.
No, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, because I think what you're trying to say is harnessing that. It's not trying to bury that sexual energy and that animalistic, that carnal tendencies, but to work with it rather than fight against it, I guess. And I think that's where, Ben, you might have a lot of comments on that with regards to what you're teaching, right? I mean, how does it work in terms of monogamy? What are you actually promoting within your communities, and what is the main form of relationship there?
Okay, so first I want to cancel out often and very frequent misunderstanding, as we still use a term free love, which is a little bit double anyway, because love in its essence is free. And So when we say free love, we mean love free of fear. And that is not an ideological statement, but it is a commitment to a process and a path. Because how we have been brought up, personally in our biography, but way beyond that as a culture. We are so much more the result of a culture and a history than just our own likings and dislikings. And with that, I say that actually monogamy can very well be a part of free love. It can be on the path of free love. I would say the core philosophy is to actually free our relationships to each other, but then also beyond to the other co-beings of our planet, to the earth itself, from fear. And that is a path that is not done in a weekend workshop. This is a culture we are in. And I mean, I put it existential now because I believe our corona situation is existential. If we do not come through this barrier of fear, we are doomed, I could say, as a culture. And so, and monogamy oftentimes is serving as a prison. In itself, the marriage is a sacrament. It is meant as a beautiful commitment forever, until death us part. Or actually, in our experience, some of it goes beyond death, actually, if the connection is profound enough. But what is very much required as a starting point to free our relationships from fear is to free them, to almost cleanse and purify them from the historical pollution of it and from the historical conditioning. And this is so much more of a path than one would usually think. So many times we say it's, if your relationship doesn't work, don't think that you are bad or mistaken. There is definitely stuff that you can learn to improve your relationship, but it has to start from truth. Because as Hans just said, there's so much that we culturally deny about ourselves that we are never on stable ground. And this is why we often question monogamy. Because if it is built on the deal, look, I don't tell you what I really feel, and I expect you not to tell me what you really feel, you never truly trust each other. Because if the other person says, I only love you, somewhere in your mind, heart, you know that this cannot be true because it is not true for yourself. This can still mean that for the path of commitment and for allowing a deeper surrender, you need the protection of a monogamous relationship, maybe for a year or maybe for this lifetime. But it can never be an ideology, otherwise it becomes a measure or a tool of power. Yeah, the monogamous marriage was actually introduced by King Creops in Greece as a way to control the woman. So that's my short.
That was what brilliant. Yeah, I mean, Hans has been commenting in the chat here, and I'm just absorbing it all, like a little kid for the first time learning about all this. You know, because I am, you know, I try and put myself in and always as the student and always as the child learning something for the first time. I'd like to ask Archer, would you like to ask any questions on that? Because I think Ben mentioned a few interesting things there about, you know, when you say that you love someone, often that's not really true, and love has to come from the core of truth first. Otherwise, how can it be true for your partner if it's not true for you? Where would you sit with that? Do you see it similarly, or do you see a different take on it? Also, I don't know if you might. Are you able to turn your phone landscape just so it looks a little bit better?
Let me try that. How's that? Yeah.
Oh well, now you're sideways.
No, I'm sideways.
Don't worry, just turn it. Don't worry, we'll just
that way. That's the way it stays.
It's all right. We'll work with this. Don't worry.
Thank you, John. I was liking what Benjamin was saying. I think he's right. The concept of marriage is kind of, for a lot of people, it is somewhat a prison cell. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Princess Bride, you know, where they talk about, you know, it being a blessed arrangement, a dream within a dream. It for a lot of people, that blessed arrangement turns into a ball and chain. And I kind of feel like marriage is sort of like this ultimate coaching package. It's a lifetime coaching package. people come into marriage, or they come into it with this expectation that things are going to be great. And a lot of us have been sort of sold this idea of living happily ever after. Of late, they had the show or the movie, Frozen, and that's like, it's the old princess concept. But I believe a lot of us think love is a feeling, but love isn't really a feeling. It's an action. It's like, it's a choice. I think there is like that original thought of desire. You can see someone, and I think for a lot of men feel attraction right away. You've probably experienced it. You see a woman and you just get this natural protector instinct that pops up, and you think, oh yes, this is the one. And that can fall apart, I think, if the relationship isn't like properly designed. After going through my relationship, getting married and then going through a divorce myself, I kind of sort of came back to astrology, which is a funny concept. A lot of Christians think astrology is of the devil, but I actually put up a post recently on my Facebook page saying, if more people had a concept of astrology, just a general concept of it, and they actually practiced it a little bit, I think there would be less divorce and less bad marriages.
For what reason, though, Archer? For what reason would you say? How would that help?
Well, it's like, if you think of the elements, you've got fire and air. Those two go together. Air feeds fire. Fire and water can be kind of dangerous, because too big of a fire can evaporate all the water. Too much of the water can put out the fire. Whereas if you take water and earth and put it together, you can make bricks, you can make clay, you can do all sorts of stuff with that. Water and wind can make waves. That could work. It's not dangerous like fire and water together. So those are sort of the things that I talk about that more people should really have a concept of. I think one of the big problems most people make is they go into a relationship because of sexual reasons. They're getting these endorphins from the sex act itself, and they don't want to let go of that. They're too afraid to let go of that, and they think that that's what love is. But after that limerence, wears off, after the first 18 to 24 months, that's when like real love takes place. You see this person in a new light. You see, hey, she's great, but man, she snores, or she leaves the bathroom a mess. She never picks up after herself. Those are the things that you have to work on. And the same can be said for men as well. He never picks up his socks. This guy's a real jerk. So I think people should really try to get more onto the soul level. Like if you bump into a woman and you think, wow, like I really feel like I've known this woman for a long time. Like if you feel like there's a sense of soul connection, and then the two of you have like similar worldviews, the two of you feel like you've got a good mental connection, your friendship is good, that should be the second consideration. And then the third, yes, do you have like physical attraction for her? But too many people put it like the opposite, and that's certainly what I think what I did. When I got married, it was mainly sex. I mean, I don't want you to think that I didn't have a friendship, but I'm Aries, and my ex-wife is Scorpio, and I often joke, it's sort of like satire, but I often joke that people should not have sex on Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day, if you have sex and conceive on Valentine's Day, you're going to wind up having a Scorpio more than likely. So I joke that Satan enters this world through, the door of Scorpio. So no offense to any Scorpios that might be on the call. It's kind of a joke, but it's kind of it's satire. So anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
Actually, that's a really good point. I'm going to ask Hans. Hans, Archer made a few good points there. I mean, when a relationship blossoms, I do believe that, you know, sexual energy is important, right? Well, that's attraction is for us, you know, especially the guys, the most important thing. It is for me anyway. And then there obviously is a transition in the relationship where, let's say you start to notice all the bad habits. Let's say the pointy knees, and then how do these relationships develop for you? How do they transition, and what's your mindset for as they evolve?
Well, yeah, I really like the idea. I think if you think about this a little bit, that people see that love is really a practice also, you know. There's a Dutch book that said that to love is a verb, you know, and it is really a practice. And but as we talk, you know, I'm mesmerized by that romantic desire that we have, and that sexual attraction and all of that. And as Archer is talking, I'm thinking, it's not really the problem. It's a real big part of why we live, you know, to have this experience, this romance, you know, be caught up in something bigger, something that's like a gift, an act of grace, and something that's given to us. We want that, you know, and I think that's beautiful, you know, to want to be seduced, to seek to be seduced. I think just the work that we have to do is add to that also this part of the practice, you know, the knowing how to deal with disagreement, the knowing the power of commitment, you know, so then that romance can blossom also, that sexuality can blossom. And so, yeah, we're stressing, I think, and I think it's very valuable, the role of commitment and arrangement and understanding and whatever that is, you know. But to add, I think, to that romance, you know, because I think that's a very important part of it too. The attraction, the romance, the seduction, I don't know what this is, but it's magical, you know, that magic part. And
that's the initial bit, but I mean, I had that with it's like the Disney. It's almost too Disney like when you have that big feeling and you have this thing. It's very intense, and then, you know, you want to, you know, have sex all the time, and it's like this amazing thing, and then it gets to the point where, like, you're with each other for so long, and then you end up just not really wanting to have sex. Then you're farting under the covers and dunking their head under the covers. You know, it can end up becoming too. I've had this where my relationships have broken down because we've become too much of best friends, to the point where the sexual energy has gone, and then I'm naturally drawn to other women that are outside of my reach, and then it becomes like that, and I'm feeling as though maybe this is something culturally you know, delivered to me, but I feel as though sometimes love and sex get separated a little bit, you know. And I don't know if you guys have any comments on that, you know, Hans especially, like what, because I'm with you on the romance thing, but I'm thinking after the honeymoon period, like, how does it transition?
It's there from the beginning, you know. It's not like first period of romance. I think maybe that's part of the problem, you know, that we think and that we think we first begin with being in love and the sex, and then we transition. No, you know, even when I was in love, you know, I'm thinking of the time I was in love, you know, I knew where it's gonna head, you know, and I was almost waiting for the first disagreement, because then I know, okay, now we're gonna start the relationship. But it's very true that, and I'm certainly not the only one saying this, that the powers that enhance are like friendship and intimacy, comfort, you know, being able to joke with each other, getting closer to one another, that the powers that enhance that also at the same time diminish in many ways the passion and the tension and the wanting to ravage each other, you know. And inversely, you know, the powers that enhance passion and seduction I'm not going to use here, but that tension, you know, the ones that enhance that diminish in a way also the way we are friends and the way we're intimate. And so we usually have a trade-off, and the challenge is really, how can you have both? And I'm convinced that not only can you have both, but, you know, that a relationship is a great platform to explore having both, you know. But it's not that's a work of a lifetime, you know. And like Archer said, it's a coaching program, you know. But it is. I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful in that way because I've seen it work, and I've also seen the desire in humans. You know, if we would have a space program the way we do relationships, we would have given it up a long time ago. But we're like, well, keep going. And so I'm convinced we'll figure it out. You know, and yeah, you see communities like the one in Tamara happening. You know that people are thinking about it. You know, and we're gonna get there. I'm convinced of that.
Thanks, brother. Just to let you guys know, we've got 2 minutes on this one before we got to hit the new link. So maybe I should just close this one out, and and then we'll pick up on the next link in just a sec. So just on that, I would say that I'll just speak personally here. I've noticed that it's the fire, it's the passion that gets me involved with a woman for the first time. It's electric, it's electromagnetic, that energy. We want to ravage each other, let's say. But then when I start to make this more a long-term thing, I notice that when that fire goes out, we become more like friends. Suddenly you need to find a new dimension in that relationship. Otherwise, you're always comparing it to the beginning, the honeymoon period.
Imagine you're eating chocolate and you really love chocolate, and you eat one piece and it's fantastic, and you want to eat more, you eat the second piece, it's still good, the third piece a little less, and the fourth. So to preserve your love for your chocolate, maybe you should eat less chocolate.
I like that. Where were we? Chocolate, sexual chocolate, sexual chocolate. Yeah. Anyone want to come in on after that, Ben? Any comments?
In my life, the reality is I have been loving chocolate since I first encountered it as a child, and I can say, and I don't want to brag, but that in my 23 year relationship, we are in passion with each other. And I want to point out a few things. Like, for me, there's a really big, again, cultural misunderstanding and misteaching. Archer spoke about sex education, that we think that this moment of being enamored or in love or simply erotically aroused by somebody is love. And when we are 16, 15, 16, 17, this is a beautiful force, and it should be allowed as beautiful, and we should learn that we do not take our decisions for lifelong partnership on that fire, because after 2 years you find out, well, yeah, she's really sexy, but actually there's not much more that connects us. And in a culture where this sexual attraction is allowed and honored, really, I don't mean this was only sex and now comes the real thing, love. There's this really beautiful quote of Douglas Abrams who says, if love rules the heavens, isn't it sex that rules the earth? And there's something very true in it. And it's a beautiful, cosmic, sacred power. It just shouldn't be mixed up with lifelong relationship. It might come up as lifelong relationship, but it might not. And in a culture where, especially for young people, they have a space to explore without a wrong commitment and then come to the real core of inner commitment, we would have a totally different culture of love and eros. Because I can say, with my partner, we had monogamous phases, and they were really important to come to some of the core wounds that everybody carries inside, especially in that area. And to heal these wounds, we needed the protection. Like being attracted to everywhere, it did not work because we needed to go deep. But I believe that we are so sexually in love still with each other is because other people are involved in our erotic life as well. And it's not forbidden. And if it's for somebody, only one person, great. The importance is that I feel the freedom or the liberty we long for is as powerful as the commitment and the deepening and the really profound search for partnership. They are both powers, and we need to come to terms, and not terms, but actually foster both of them. And for that, again, I say we need truth in the first place. And culturally, we need education towards truth, and we need spaces where truth can be spoken without judgment. And this includes the whole gender discussion.
What
I
is truth
mean,
to you, Benjamin?
hmm?
What is truth to you?
Okay, truth, it's not an ideology. Truth is the undisguised and direct contact between two living beings. That's really from Wilhelm Reich, who says life that's perceived and life that is perceiving. And truth is contact, the truth of contact. And when I say, there's a saying in America that men play love to get sex and women play sex to get love. And with the current state of our culture, this is true. There's also another much deeper layer where this is not true, where we think that free sexuality is made for men is very superficial. Now, we'll very shortly touch into the patriarchy we live in, man's and the masculine ruling the world. And in my understanding, this desire to have power over women comes from a very deeply rooted and collective inferiority complex of the masculine, especially in sexuality. And it gets compensated by all our macho relationships and by the idea that we force women into virginity and monogamy, whereas the beauty of the feminine source is free. And I think culturally, evolutionary, we are still, as men, we are still growing up to become partner of that. There were matriarchies long time ago, there were patriarchy, there's patriarchy now at the end, and it has been a cultural episode of war. And we need to move into partnership where we really honor the sexual freedom of the feminine again. And we as men, with all humbleness, say, we learn to live up to that and do not fake it. We do not say, yeah, sure, no problem. But we really come to the point where we can touch that point in women. And through that also regain the sacredness of masculinity. Because of course, the masculine is as beautiful and sacred a force and a source as the feminine. It just has been really abused throughout history. Yeah. And I can say I lived for 22 years with a woman, and I can say there are many moments where we are in love like the first days, as with the endorphins, they are thriving, but there's a much deeper layer, and that is what are we here? What is our relation serving? It's not only us, but it is serving something bigger than us. It is serving the relation to the divine. It is opening the channel to the divine. And it is serving the good of other people as well. And from a certain point on, I don't know your experience, but in my partnership, this, what do we do together for the world, has become the substantial core. Otherwise, there might be erotic attraction or not, one day or another, or the snoring or the pointed knees, but there's a much deeper layer where we can really rely on each other. And then we start the age of partnership.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hans, you actually wrote something there in the comments. I thought that was pretty profound as well as a follow-up.
Yes. No, I really trust you in that, Benjamin. And I would have never thought of it, saying it that way, you know, because I do want to make a stand for men, and, you know, but the way you address patriarchy that way, you know, I see, and I've experienced, and working with men, I do think it's a great journey and understanding to come to terms and celebrate the sexual freedom, whatever, of women. You know, it really shows you where you are as a man. You discover it, and you could sculpt it in that process. You know, I think it's I think it's profound words to me, and great.
Mm. I mean, I have some thoughts, but Archer, what I want you guys to do, if you just feel free at this point, I think it would make a new dimension to the show if you just all ask questions and just, you know, get involved now. I'm no longer the core of the spider web anymore. I just think just let this all just flow organically, and, you know, please all just chime in. We'll sat around a table having a beer or something, you know. Archer, any thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I am curious about the open relationship that Benjamin has talked about. One thing I wanted to touch on, and anybody can chime in on this, is that I think from my perspective as a man, I do harbor some distrust towards women. I don't really, I guess, have this idea of wanting to dominate them per se, but I do see my role as like, if I was to be in a relationship with one, I would see where I would have to be sort of like the leader of it, for, I guess, everybody's good. I think about like all the religions of the world, pretty much for the most part, been started by men. I kind of see men as a very important part of the world. Without, what's that?
For understanding, did you say all religions have been started by men?
I would say I feel many of them have, at least the ones that I've witnessed. Perhaps maybe the ones started by women have been, pushed under, and I haven't seen those. But when Benjamin, when you were talking, I was thinking, yes, I mean, there is a deep wound that a lot of men experience. And, I wonder how much of that is tied to, circumcision, how much of that is tied to sort of like, again, going back to the Old Testament idea of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And, if you're going to be a member of this tribe, you got to cut off your foreskin. Again, we're going to take all of our cows, we're going to sacrifice them, and, it's going to be basically a bloodbath because, God wants some sort of sin offering. So I like the idea of sort of moving beyond that idea of, I guess, like the old, basically, the Jewish and Christian idea of, sacrifice. And
so you don't believe that marriage is the, in its current carnation, in its current form, works or not?
I mean, I think marriage can work if people, do identify that, this feeling that we feel, it's not necessarily love, it's just physical attraction, and we need to see if like there's a real friendship here, and if we really see the world in the same way. Can we like take all the things that we're hiding because we want to be seen in the best light? Can we actually bring that out a lot earlier in the show and say, hey, this is something that I've been dealing with, just want to let you know about that. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think of, like celibacy and like the idea of what can come from celibacy. I mean, you think of like people like Nikola Tesla. I'll use him as an example, somebody that was pretty much celibate for his entire life. The things that he was able to accomplish, I guess from a mental perspective, the things that he was able to invent, because he was using that force flowing through his body, the sexual force, he was creating ideas and inventions, as opposed to, using it for meeting women down at the beach.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wonder if anyone's got an opinion on that kind of sublimation of, or the alchemy of sexual energy, and using that in a different way, because there's one argument would be to say that you have that sexual energy, it's your natural gift, you should be able to express that with women. But is there another argument to say that energy should be used, because it's a life force energy? Sex is the creator energy, it's a creative energy. Should it always be used in terms of sexual intercourse, or is that an energy that should be used for creating in other areas? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Hans?
Well, I've sure become very creative when I desired a woman, But I've only harnessed that in in the non-sexual way for as long as she refused to have sex with me. So, yes, it's an interest. I don't have experience with willfully abstaining myself and see what comes from it. I'm sure great things can happen, you know, and I'm sure great inventions were made also because men were having great sex, you know. For myself, I've been my most powerful when my sexual relationships are happening and are great. So I can't speak from experience.
Can I say, I said before that monogamy is an essential part of free love. And I would extend it even more provocatively. Celibacy from free choice is part of free love as well. The point is, and then we come into indoctrination and everything. The idea that we get celibacy because sexuality is bad. And that's very stereotypical, but it's still ruling the show in the unconscious, in the collective unconscious. And then there's also a way, when I think sex education, that the choice is not to either have sexuality or use that energy for something else. There's actually the possibility to actually have sexuality and increase the energy with it. I mean, not when you're 14 and you have your first moment, but through maturation, we can actually learn. And I'm not talking strict tantra, but through maturation and through actually a soul connection, we can learn that this energy can be harnessed and passed on. It can be passed on into creativity, writing, painting, designing, but it can also be passed on as love energy into a community, into the world, as service. I feel we are gifted with both sexuality and love to serve life and not to control it. I think that's really the bottom line in a way for me. And I know moments where I'm very tempted, where I just so charged that I just want to give it away. And I know, similar to Hans, and there are these moments where this does not happen, and I'm getting to my genius because of that energy, and because seduction can be part of it. Yeah, all of it.
I do find that with culture, when we're sexually charged, we're like batteries. And I think that energy has to somehow be channeled somewhere, you know, if not with a woman, it has to go somewhere. And I think that's why culture, we have football stadiums and drugs and alcohol as ways to discharge that charge, right? It's a way to, capture that energy because it has to go somewhere, right? Or masturbating.
And cyclists racing up mountains.
There we go. Yeah, and Hans is a top cyclist as well. So
one more, I have to say it because you just said it so beautifully and you named the nice versions. Football and racing up mountains. Now I make it placative,
that's right.
But I actually think we have war because of that suppression.
Absolutely.
And we have a very light conversation, which is beautiful. But I think we also all know that this issue runs profoundly deep and is very close to the root of the catastrophe we have. So just to say that, because men do not just climb up mountains when they are suppressed. They have been waging war.
Right.
Yeah, there's the dark side of it as well. Yeah. I mean, just on a side note, I mean, I know you talk a lot about patriarchy. This might even be an episode for another time. Personally, I don't even think we live in a patriarchy. That's my personal opinion. I actually think we live in a metaphysical matriarchy. And I actually did a show with someone a while back about that. On the surface level, I believe that it looks like it's the men that are dominating. They're the tyrants. They're the ones in control. But I actually believe that life is a yin yang, and where there's the dark side of masculinity, there's also the positive side of masculinity, and that they're the ones that protect the perimeter. They're the ones that go to, I've lost my. Are we still here? Are we still in?
I'm still here.
We still see you.
Oh, bloody hell! Oh no! Well, hang on a sec. It's the gremlins got me. I'm speaking too candidly. Can you still see me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see you.
Let me see what happened here. There we go. Right. Okay. Okay, brilliant. Okay, this is just my opinion. It's just amusing. It's just my, but I believe that there's the dark side of masculinity, but there's also the positive side of masculinity, and that positive side is the one that protects. He protects his family, he protects the perimeter, and you can expand that out to protecting the towns and the cities and the countries, and they gravitate towards the top positions of power. But they also gravitate towards the very bottom positions of power as well. So if you look at the majority of homeless people on the street are men. The ones that men die younger. They have more workplace deaths are men. The ones that more suicides, men. And so there's a dark side of men. And I think for me, I think that it's when we talk about patriarchy, we have this image of the guy, the monopoly guy with the monocle, just with his swimming in pools of cash. But I actually think that men have gone through a lot. That men have run into machine gun fire to protect their country, their queen, and their family. And so for me, it's a bit of a yin yang. I see the dark side, but I also give men a lot of honor and credit for the work they've had to do as well. And I do believe men get demonized in society, and they get collectively demonized. And I think that men carry the burden and the shame of men long dead or distant. And I think that I can actually see a lot of men, and a lot of men that I've coached. I don't know if this is the same for you, Hans, but they're almost carrying this historical weight of the atrocities that men have perpetrated in the past, and they're carrying that shame around them. They're hiding, they're cutting their balls off, and they're walking around, shameful of their masculinity.
No, I completely concur. I've also moved into like really feeling an important role for me in making a stand for men. Well, first of all, I don't think we're going to solve anything in what's happening in the world by blaming either men or women, but that's going to happen by honoring men and honoring women, honoring feminism, anyone. If you can find it in your heart to not judge but to honor your worst enemy, then we can find a solution. So we're not going to argue our way into a solution about you're right and you're wrong, not at all, but by honoring each other. And that's why I really listened and liked what Benjamin was saying, because he was speaking about the patriarchy that I hadn't heard before. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I want to go with it, and I want to see where he's coming from. And when I did that, I could see why he was saying the things he was saying. And then it makes sense, Like I read also Simone de Beauvoir, who was seen as one of the first feminists and hailed as a great feminist. And I love what she's writing. Her writings are incredible in terms of like women are only defined in relationship to, and there's no real, they can't really articulate their own position. And for the first time I thought, wow, I get it. I get what she's saying. And at the same time, when I asked Simone de Beauvoir, she says, what are you most proud of in your life? And she said, to love my men, to love Sartre. And the feminists don't like to hear that, but I get her. I get, what she's saying. That's at the same time, she's so important for feminists, and I get her when she's saying, love my man. That was what I'm really proud of. And so I'm saying, like, to really, really try to honor the other, especially the one that you feel most judgment towards. That's the way forward. And I just have, for me, I found a great role in making a stand for men, because I do think, and I've experienced of the men around me, that they carry this weight in very similar way. A lot of Germans, carry the weight of history of Nazis, and so it's just my role that I can make a stand for men and help those more right now than making a stand for women, which I have been doing, and I do also, but I see I can have more leverage in making that stand for men. And it's not because I think men are right, and women are wrong. Not at all. But I can play a role in that. It's like, for me, women are very much my stabilizing power, and it's not because they're more stable, no, it's because they're on the other side in many ways, and they're the opposite in many ways. And so that's how they are my stabilizing power. So yeah, I make a stand for men, but not because I think they're more right, but I think that's a great role I can play. And I think making a stand and honoring each other, really is the solution or really is a way forward and out of this whatever happens, the culture wars and the gender, whatever is called.
Absolutely. Well said, my brother. Well said. Thoughts? Anyone else?
Yes, I like that idea of there being peace between the genders. I mean, if you think of the yin and the yang symbol, the two squirrels, they interlock and everything. There's no wasted space. There's no jagged lines. Everything's smooth. Everything functions well. And there's the two circles that are equidistant from each other, and they're at the opposite ends of the spectrum, and they balance each other. There's balance in that symbol. And I think what Hans is saying too is that women can provide like this fuel. It's almost like, men are the mental force and the spiritual force, but that's not going to really accomplish a lot unless there's a heart and there's blood pumping, and women provide that heart and the blood. So I know, John, you don't want me quoting a lot of scripture here.
That's all right. No, it's why I brought you on. It's a different dimension to it. So it's all good.
Right. In the Old Testament, it talks about women being the helpmeets, right? Women being the helpers. First supposedly it was Adam, and then he put him to sleep, pulled out the rib, and bam, some genetic magic, and boom, there's this woman, there's Eve, and then everything starts off from that story, right? And I think Napoleon Hill talked about it too in Think and Grow Rich, where he says, a lot of the hidden success for a lot of these quote unquote wealthy men, these giants of industry, there's a woman somewhere in the background who's sort of sitting at home and saying, with her abacus, saying, "Oh, another win, whoop, another win, whoop, good job, honey, really great." So yeah, I mean, it's that idea. And to talk though about the lower end of the spectrum, where men do sort of turn away from everything, and they sort of become the hermits, right? Or the guys living on the street, or the guys that are up in the Himalayas, meditating in a cave for 18 hours a day, and they're living off of firewood, and they're eating leaves off of local trees and stuff like that. Again, it's that, I think what's the scariest thing about men, and the thing that men really need to get a handle on, is this idea of killing and death and challenge. Benjamin's certainly right that there's another element. It's not just Super Bowl or Manchester United. It's AK-47. It's shotgun. It's fist fights. It's all of that stuff that's really detrimental to society. And
Archer, can I just Can I just interject that, because I actually remember reading a post of Hans, and I came to a similar sort of conclusion. But when I'm at my most sexually charged, I can actually feel within me, within my potential, the ability to create or to completely destroy simultaneously. I can feel that within my body as a potential, and it's where, however I direct that energy. But I can actually feel that. I don't know if you have your own takes on that, but I can definitely feel that sexual energy has that potential to do either.
Yeah. And I'd come across this thing recently. I think it's called Life Book. It's by John and Missy Butcher, and they started the Precious Moments Company, and they seem to have a really great relationship, and like they're sort of teaching people. They've got this part of this course where they do talk about the sexual energy, and how if it's used in the proper way, it can really create a lot of interesting things. And I feel like the Mormons have somewhat of a grip on this. I mean, people that have experienced like the Mormons. I mean, I'm not promoting any particular religious sect. I just, speaking off the cuff, but there is certainly, and I know I've felt that before too, where you do feel like there's this energy that flows through you, and you do feel like you can take on the world, and hopefully you will create, but you might destroy anything that gets in the way of what you're trying to create.
Yeah.
And it's powerful, that's why women are so attracted to vampires.
Right.
I mean, why is that? Because the vampire weird. Wants to kill her, but for you, I'm not gonna do it. It's I'm this close to and there's incredible energy in that, and it's like we almost don't want to look at the bad part, and there's no shorter way to be enslaved by that than by not looking at it,
Right.
And so it's like I see it in me. I have the potential to, talk with God. I'm and I'm a monkey. I got a dick for a brain at the same time, and I can destroy everything. I mean, all that, I'm not, and I see it. And because I see that, and I can see it in me, and I see it in women, it gives me so much peace, They're like, okay, let's go.
Thank you, both of you. And both of you mentioned now, I think, the guilt package or the shame that we have around being man. And the question was, what is there right about masculinity? And really, I really believe yin and yang was mentioned. It has a total, it's just, it's complementing each other. These powers, these polar powers complement each other. And the whole idea of ruling over one of them is not in the cosmic nature of us. With the shame and the guilt of man, by what Hans just said, by suppressing it, by pushing it away, it keeps running the show. And I like actually, John, that you say there is another layer, not just patriarchy as men being the powerful. There's definitely another layer. And on a societal level, it has been man. And what Archer said, even in religion, it has been man for the past 5,000 years. Before that, all religions were religions of the Great Mother. I mean, not to forget. This is all the Abrahamic religions. And for me, it is this point of what are the vessels we create that are not too small for that kind of a life force. Because we often use an analogy of water. Water is not bad in itself, of course. It's beautiful, it's life-giving. But if you put it in, if you dam it up and the dam breaks, it has destructive power. And this is how I view eros many times, that if it can flow, if it can be expressed, it's beautiful. Most of our motivation comes from that, if we are honest with ourselves, at least until we are whatever, I don't know how long that will last. But if it is put into the wrong vessels, into a twosome relationship only, all the erotic power, it cannot work, and it turns destructive. And so I feel it as a responsibility of society and culture builders to create the right vessels. And I would say everything I say about opening relationships and healing the trauma and the wounds in love and sexuality, I always speak that in a communal setting. This is not a private, the wound is so deep that you will actually start hating each other, or you just break up. I mean, that's a civilized form of before you hit each other. But the power is so deep and the wound is so deep that we need to have spaces that are protected to uncover this wound and to allow healing forces of eros actually into this wound. So all I'm saying is it needs a communal vessel, or even better, a cultural understanding of these powers. That's really my main line. And now I see that we are coming to an end. So I just want to say, John and everybody, because we are touching really profound issues with a few sentences. So I will mention again Dieter Doom and his writing of Eros Unredeemed, because it is laid out in such a profound way. And I feel the beauty of both love and sexuality deserves that we give it more attention, that we really go to that depth of the issue. Yeah, I say that with like fully.
I-
Enjoying this conversation. Just it's so deep. Yeah,
it is, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. Well, Dieter as well, but I know he's quite elderly now, isn't he? So and he doesn't speak English, but we're still trying to get him on. But yeah, so thank you so much for coming on, Ben. And as you're speaking, it's it's wonderfully articulated, and you're very passionate about it, and I can feel that. I'm sure the others can feel that. And yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't feel like we had long enough, does it? I'd love to do this again with you guys at some point.
Yes,
because,
Yes.
I'm going to echo this, and if this call has been good, it's because the start of something.
Yeah.
I also feel like we're not even scratching the surface; it's almost nothing. And if nothing else, I will invite you guys also. I have a podcast doing the seduction show, and I want to explore this more, just for my own. But John, I would, if we can have this conversation again, I would love it.
I would love to.
I just realized that that we live in a great time, because it's not necessarily the being healed that's important, but the healing is a great process. And in the healing, there's a lot we can discover. It's great, So I put some personal questions there also for Benjamin, but maybe it's not for on air. But I'm very interested in that, and I can see how it's the seeing the wounds and the healing, which has such a richness, and that's an opportunity we have that nobody else had. It's a great time for that, and so yeah, I would love to continue. John, thank you very much.
No, thank you,
Thank you, John.
I would love to have this be the first of many. I really
I would really be up for that if you guys are, and of course there's other people that I can bring on as well. But I really wanted to put the dream team together here. This all started because of Archer. Archer hit me up and mentioned the work that he was doing. Look, we've got 3 minutes left, so how about we do this, Archer? Do you want to just tell the audience about your book and your website, and then we'll sign off, everyone, and then what we'll do is we'll try and set this up again, and hopefully we've left the audience wanting more. So do you want to finish off, Archer, by telling us your signpost to your websites and stuff?
Sure. My book is available on Amazon. It's The Sex Education You Never Received. And, touching on what Benjamin said, one of the points that I make in the book is that, sex it's a sacred act. It's not dirty at all. It's a sacred act. And because it is sacred, you should try to be judicious about who you share it with. So, yeah, I think it's a good book. I mean, I feel like the stuff that I share there, I mean, if people take it and they use it, it's going to increase the success of marriages globally. So, yeah.
Fantastic. All right.
May I ask, you live in a relationship? You are married?
Not now. I've been like a celibate monk, so to speak, for like the past 6, 7 years, 8 years.
Interesting. Finally, Hans, we've got about a minute left. I want the audience to know about you, brother, and your work and that book that you've been holding up.
Well, I just hold it up now. The Way of a Seducer, a code of honor to a lost art. And it's an essential part of relationships. There's much more. There's honor. There's seduction. There's way more than that. But those are the things I want to make a stand for. You can find me on hanscomyn.com. And that's the place to start. You can ask questions. And thank you, John.
All right.
hanscomyn.com.
Okay, and we'll put that in the description as well. And you guys will send me the links to everything, and I'll put that in the description underneath this video. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. This is a Raising the Bar special around relationships. I got a lot out of that. That's exactly what I was hoping for. 3 intelligent, profound, spiritual dudes who can give us a slightly different angle, but all come into a sort of an understanding. And that's exactly what I hope for. And I'm glad that we all did it and we accomplished something there. So my name is John Cooper. Please like this video. Please give it a subscribe. Please share it with your friends, and hopefully we can get these guys on to do a round 2 of this. All right, everyone. I'll leave it there, and take care. And we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.